I know people with millions of followers who get less story views than I do at 170,000, right? So like for me, it's really about like what your influence level is. I mean, at the bare minimum, 10% for me is like the bare minimum. You know, sometimes it can be a little bit lower, but 10% is sort of like my threshold. Now, higher than that, that's when like my ears start to perk up, right? I have someone on my roster who has probably 100,000-ish followers and she gets like 25,000 story views. It's insane, right? Like talk about influence.
You're listening to Food Empires by Grocer's List. I'm your host, Ben Jabawi. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Food Empires. I'm here today with Erica Eckman. Erica embodies Food Empire like in so many different ways, so I'm excited to get into it. She's the founder of Echo, which is one of the most powerful agencies I've come across that represents the most insane roster of creator talent, but also works with top brands on paid media and influencer and creator campaigns. She's also one of the founders of Flav City, which has grown like crazy over the last few years. But I think she's also very relatable to the audience because she started as a food and lifestyle content creator, which you still operate today, called Everything Erica, right?
I do, yeah. You forgot the most important thing, how we know each other.
Yeah, how do we know each other?
We went to camp together when we were kids, which is like, all the other things are like, okay, cool, but like, that's really cool. Like that we met at camp and can come together all these years and like work together and do this podcast. I mean, it's awesome.
I know. We were friends. We were like 8 and 9 years old. Oh. Erica was like the most social butterfly there ever was.
Oh my God. It takes one to know one.
But then we kind of just like life happens. We didn't keep in touch. And now 30 years later, we've actually done a ton of business together this year. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I'm excited to talk to you about all things influencer marketing and the food world and all the things.
Let's go back to the beginning. Yeah. Tell us, like, how did you get into content creation and everything, Erica?
Yeah, so I was from a really small town originally. And when I moved to Chicago for the first time, it was my first time living in a city. And so for me, that was like going to restaurants and like just like living this city life that I had never known. I mean, we had more cows than people in my hometown. So for me, this was just like really cool. And so I started sharing this stuff. Originally it was on Facebook, but I was like, I don't want to like annoy people like with this stuff. So I'm going to start a blog and I'm just going to like share all the cool things that I'm seeing and doing and eating. And so I named the blog Everything Erica, essentially just going to share everything I was seeing. And it took off. I mean, I say that in that, like, in my mind, I felt like it took off. Like I had started to grow a following through social media. People were reading my blog. I had a recipe go at the time I thought was like so viral. And so I was actually the director of operations of a luxury real estate company at the time. And I was kind of like, in the nicest way possible, given an ultimatum. It was like, hey, this blog thing seems like it's taking off. I don't know that it's the best representation for a luxury real estate company, knowing that I'm wildly self-deprecating and like, it just, I get it, right? Like it wasn't the right fit for the brand. And so they were basically like, kind of shut the blog down and kind of stick with us or, you know, go that path. You seem really passionate, like give it a try. And so you got to remember, this is 2013. So There's no like, blueprint for this. And I was like, all right, I'm quitting my job. And I was getting married at the time and I had a little bit of money from my parents for a wedding fund. And I was like, I'm going to live off of this and just know that I'll pay my wedding bills when they come due because I believe in myself. I'm going to figure out how to make money, which was insane, but that's what I did.
So when you say one of your recipes went viral, does that mean on the blog you got a lot of traffic?
Blog, yeah. So it, like SEO back then, I guess like it hit. It was a very niche recipe for Utica chicken riggies where I went to college. And it's a very popular recipe in the Utica region and it just took off and I was getting millions of hits a month. Hits, I sound like I'm old. I was getting millions of hits a month and I put like, you know, a little blog ad thing on my website and I started to make some money, which was really cool. I mean, we're not talking hundreds and thousands of dollars, it could be a couple $100s a month, whatever. But it was enough for me to be like, okay, this could be something. And so at the time I knew in my mind, I needed to make $3,000 a month to live. Like that's what I needed to pay my rent. And like, I was eating for free because I was posting online. So everyone was inviting me and I just need to pay my rent and like need a little extra money for like, go to the salon, whatever, $3,000. And so what I did was before I quit my job, I thought about all the ways I could make money. And so in my brain, I was like, okay, what are the things I know how to do? Well, I could do consulting. I could be a nanny. I just laid everything out that I
Sure.
could. Blog revenues, whatever. And when you break it down like that, right, it was like, okay, if I did 2 consulting gigs at $1,000 each, there's 2,000, that's only 2 clients I needed. And if I did a social post, 2 social posts a month, maybe that's another $500. And I started to add it up and I realized that like, I could probably do this if I dedicated all of my time to it. And so I left my job and I developed actually a course to teach restaurants in Chicago how to grow their following on Instagram. And I started to sell it and I would like teach them the course. But what I noticed really quickly is that like you could lead a horse to water, but then like they'd still want me to like continue to help them. So I would credit them back the money. And then I started running social media for restaurants in Chicago. So that's actually how I got my start. I wasn't making money as everything Erica. No one was paying like a regular girl who had a little bit of a following to do anything. But restaurants, they were paying me to go in, take all of their content, run their social media page, hold press events with my friends who are influencers.
Wow.
And I built up that business over the course of a few years.
So you're doing some consulting for the restaurants. You're selling the course. You're also developing everything Erica at the same time.
I was, completely organically. I wasn't really making money on that till around 2017. But around that time is when I kind of made the decision that like, I loved showing up online and having a community and cooking and, but my real passion was helping people and helping brands and helping restaurants. And I just like loved that world. And so while I always kept everything Erica up from like it was a lot of like market research perspective, right? Like I could go out, be the like online personality, see what was working and build this cool community. But those learnings were what I was extrapolating to run my business.
Well, I think it's so relevant to like where you are now because you still have a testing ground for new technology and all these things that you then bring to other creators and brands. So it almost makes you more relatable to people in your roster and to brands when you're talking about how to structure campaigns and all that stuff.
I think understanding the world from the influencer side, from the brand side, and then also as, as a founder of a CPG brand. So from like the CMO lens, like understanding that sort of like 360 look into product marketing, like it gives you a really unique angle into like how to structure these things to win.
So let's dive into both of those because that's really why I wanted to bring you on. I think that perspective is fascinating. So you're in Chicago, things are starting to move. You meet Bobby? Because you're the co-founder of Flav City. You were the original CMO too, right?
Yeah. So well, let's fast forward a little bit. So this is actually a crazy story. So yeah, met Bobby in Chicago. We were great friends. And right around, I remember the date, March 13th, 2020, my birthday, actually. The world shut down. And at the time I was doing all the restaurant marketing. I had gotten into CPG marketing. I was working with a lot of in-store retail brands and booking for them. And that business like literally blew up overnight. I went from I was making a couple $100,000 a year business to literally every client said to me, I can't spend money. My restaurants are closed.
Yeah.
And so I had to audible quickly because I had no money. And so what I did was I really quickly realized that people were shopping online because they couldn't go to the stores. And so I would notice if I would post a link to something, people were clicking it and buying it like crazy. And so I'm like, what if I DM the brands that I'm already using that I love? Like if I could, help them get a return on their investment, also provide a discount code to my followers. And then I happen to know like a lot of people like Bobby and things like that can also make great sales for these brands. Maybe I could start another business. And so that's how like I call Echo 2.0 was born. My first client was a Heart of Palm pasta brand called Natural Heaven. And I think the budget at the time was maybe $30,000 or $40,000, which was a lot of money to spend on influencers. And I took the risk and I said, I think I can get you a return on this investment. And we did. And here we are. And I think, so I started on the brand side and then quickly started to realize that the talent that I was booking who like really moved the needle had no representation. The big agencies weren't looking at them. They didn't know what to charge. And so like the helper in me was like, well, I can manage you too. And so that's how the management piece got started. Bobby was, I think, talent number 2. Biz, who I think is talent number 1.
Oh, wow. Amazing. I didn't know that. Shout out, Biz.
Biz is the best. She's still, I mean, what's cool is not only she's still with us, like all my talent is still with us. Like we're all friends. Like, like this is not, it's not a typical talent agency in that like, it's this, you sign on the dotted lines. Like when I put my stamp of approval and say, I want to work with you and back you, like that is a true investment. And so these are like my people.
I love that. So, all right. So now you're actually through the brand side, you realize you should actually represent and coach and build up the talent side too.
Yep.
Let's fast forward even more. So you're building that up, but when does like Flav City? Yeah. How does that even come into the picture?
So 2020 also, again, part of this, like I got to figure out what to do. Bobby, I looked at him and I said, listen, like you are driving measurable revenue for brands. I'm seeing it with the work that we're doing together. I know what the heck I'm doing in terms of scaling a brand. I'm doing it for X, Y, and Z brands right now. Like, why don't we start something together? Like, and so just through our analysis, what we found is on his blog, there was a really popular recipe for immunity tea. Talk about hits, right? Like it was getting millions and millions a month. And so we were like, let's start with this product. It's onerous to make. It can stain your countertops. Like this was a very path of least resistant type of product. I had no idea what I was doing, by the way. I never started a product in my life. So you know what I did is like the like supply side shows and things like that so I went on their website and I looked at all the vendors that were going to be at supply side and I just started emailing them and I was like, hey, I have this idea. Can you make this? Here are the ingredients. And we figured it out. I built the website. I got a little 3PL, which is a third party logistics company to ship the product to send out. And I connected it with Shopify. It was crazy. But in the first like day and a half, I think we sold like our first 5,000 units, which was wild. And
all then, through Bobby's social?
Through Bobby just saying, hey, I created this tea. And so took a few months to build up more inventory because we didn't want to like get investors or do anything like that. So we just like put our own money in. I actually like put like everything I had essentially at that point in time. But I knew it was going to work. Like I was positive. And so bought more inventory. And that's really how we scaled. And so we have a full team now. But up until about a year and a half ago, I sat as the CMO, which is crazy. So yes, I was the CEO of Echo Digital, running everything Erica, and then the CMO of Flav City. So,
without sharing actual numbers, like give us a sense of the scale of Flav City for people that aren't familiar and what they sell now.
So now we've diversified into protein smoothies and sleep supplements and electrolytes, and we're nationwide at Target, which has been such like a feather in our cap and like a really big moment for us. I can't talk about revenue numbers, but
sure.
Listen, it's bigger than I could have ever dreamed of. And I think, sometimes I think about this sometimes when like your reality now is bigger than the things you could have ever dreamed of. Like, where do you go? How do you like navigate through that? And that's, I think, some of the things I deal with now is like, I started this stuff on my couch. Like, so now where I'm at now with a lot of this stuff, it's like, okay, like, how do I even like go to that next level, knowing that like this wasn't even in my purview to begin with? I'm someone who just like puts my head down and just like works. It's
amazing. So basically the foundation of Flav City was built off of you watching just the influencer creator model being successful with driving sales for other brands, understanding, wow, we should actually just do this and own the full stack ourselves on top of Bobby's platform, essentially. And then just watching you over the last 2 years since we've been working together, I've seen Flav City seems to be very successful with that strategy, but not just through Bobby anymore. Obviously, it's its own brand, but through a roster of other creators, some in Echo and some outside, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. So now, you've transitioned Like, are you full-time Echo?
I am full-time CEO of Echo now. It gets 100% of my attention. It was a great run being involved day to day in that company, and I learned so much. But I am also someone who is the first to raise my hand when I don't know something. And it got to a stage where like I felt that keeping myself and Bobby in the day to day any longer would not be in the best interest of what we could be doing. And so we hired an amazing executive team, and they have just been incredible. So I can focus now the majority of my time at scaling Echo, which we've been able to do. I mean, in the year that I have turned my focus strictly back to Echo, we've almost doubled our employees.
Wow.
And so it's fun when you can actually like focus for a minute on one thing.
And I've seen, I mean, I don't know who you work with from a brand perspective, but I've seen the talent roster grow quite a bit too. Some really, really big names.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk about working with brands and creators. Obviously, that's like the central point of what you do now. Give us a feel for like how much brand campaign money flows through Echo.
Yeah, I mean it's a couple $1 million a month. We also run the paid media, so that is also like a pretty big lift as well. What's really cool though is if you think about it from like just like an objective lens, it's like, okay, we're running these brand partnerships here, and brands have what's called KPIs, right? Where they want to have certain return goals or CPMs or whatever it is. And we as the sort of like representative of those brands have a responsibility to hit those goals for them. But what's really cool is when we manage the talent and we book them on those campaigns, we are able to get them the highest rates possible while still managing to hit the brand's KPIs, right? So it's almost like a balance and check. So, sometimes people we can easily hear from a brand saying like, well, you're just going to book your own talent but it's like, no, I'm going to do what's going to keep you the longest and what's going to get them the highest amount of money, right? So what's really hard sometimes is when you manage talent and you're at the expense of these agencies, you don't know what the KPIs are. You don't know if you're undercharging, you're overcharging. There's no like real transparency there. You're just kind of flying at the hip, where every deal that we do at Echo with our own talent, like we know we're getting them the highest possible rate we can while still making sure that the brands are like thrilled. So that's why we keep our clients so long and we keep our talent so long, is because there's that like symbiotic relationship there.
And that's in big part because when you're doing both sides, you see the true end-to-end analytics of the full funnel of the campaign.
Yep.
How do brands maybe walk us through what that funnel is and the ultimate KPI? I assume you're working with D2C brands or retail or something.
Both. So I would say the two primary KPIs we work with the most, well, there's a few, but return on ad spend, obviously, when we're talking about a D2C brand with a really, the LTV is not as important. If let's say it's like Flav City, for example, right? We'd be looking at like a return on ad spend, especially in the first few years. Now that we're in Target though, we're going to look at things more like CPM based, right? So cost per thousand eyes, because we need household awareness because people are buying it in store. If we're working with, let's say Haya, which is one of our clients, that's a customer with like a really long LTV, meaning it's a subscription service. So there we'd be looking at customer acquisition costs. How much does it cost to acquire a customer? That kind of thing. So it really is hyper specific to the brand, what the average order value is, that's going to determine things, what the LTV looks like. If a really long LTV, you can afford to have a like much higher customer acquisition cost or a lower ROAS. But if it's something where like it's a one-time purchase, you're going to need a really high ROAS to make it make sense. So it's like we assess all of those things when we intake clients and figure out like, okay, what are the KPIs and that's part of putting that CMO hat on, is like, I can have those discussions. I can say, let me look at your COGS. Let me understand your business. Like I can help you establish like what those metrics need to be to scale.
Yeah. And so just for people that maybe are a little bit less familiar, ROAS, return on ad spend, is really just a number. It's this idea, hey, if I as a brand am spending 10,000 on this campaign through creators, if I'm getting 10,000 in return, that's a ROAS of 1.
Yep.
What is a successful ROAS?
So it depends on the LTV, which is the lifetime value. So I'll use an example here. So this is a brand, the Echo doesn't work with them, but I've worked with them many, many times. So this is Raycon, right? Raycon, without giving away but just from a philosophical lens, they're going to need a much higher return on ad spend than, let's say, like, I don't know, a gum, right?
Yeah.
Because the repeat purchase on an earbud is very low. So if they don't have a return where they're making their money back and a profit, so like a 1x return is not going to work on something like that. But now if you take like a gum company, or like, you can afford to be even like 0.5 or 0.75, knowing that like the lifetime value, they're going to keep purchasing that product over and over. So you can afford to pay more for that customer. So it's really custom to what the brand is. And then also like the price point of the brand too.
Right. Like the price point of the product that they're promoting.
Yeah.
And so how is all of this measured though? Like mechanically, is it, you provide each of the creators in the campaign a special link that they're posting in stories? Is it a coupon code? Is it all of the above? Like, how are you doing it?
It could be discount code. It could be a trackable Google Analytics link. We use Grocers List to do a lot of that stuff too. Like, anything D2C, we really try to draw that linear line between influencer posts and sales comes in. And so those are some of the ways you do that. Now, if we're talking retail, right? Like we have a lot of clients that we work with on the retail side. It's a little bit more difficult. So what we look at for retail is CPM. So the cost per thousand eyes. We look at things like earned media value. So like what we'll do is we'll take, let's say 1 million people saw this content. We can safely say that maybe 0.5% of those are actually going to take action at a $10 AOV. You can actually figure out what the ROAS looks like from an earned media perspective. We will sometimes work with companies like Aisle to do downloadable coupons and look at redemption. So there's a million different ways you can do that. We also, on the paid media side, we can geofence around certain areas. And there's ways to track in-store stuff through that. And so, yeah, I mean, there's lots. Awesome. It's all totally custom, though, based on the brand and the initiative and all of that.
So that's the brand side. One of the things that sounds like really launched Echo for you was just seeing that creators that didn't have the experience or the breadth of campaigns was just that they weren't familiar with how to price and market themselves. Like, without getting into like, hey, here's what you should charge for a reel. How do you think about pricing based on the different creators in the roster?
Yeah. So, to take you back, because I think the context is helpful, I was signing people who and it's still our thesis today, right? When you talk about an Echo creator, these are people who've amassed their following because they're passionate about something and they're sharing that passion with their audience. So you'll see that's why I have a lot of like educational creators, food creators, weight loss, comedians, people who are generally really passionate and like sharing that passion. And when you have that type of audience that you've cultivated, your conversions with working with brand partners are usually significantly higher, right? And so what I was able to do was get them paid significantly more than they would normally think to get paid based on their following size, right? So I understood pretty early on that like you just needed to like price based on return on ad spend for brands. So let's talk about pricing, because you asked that question and I want to get into it. So there's a couple ways you have to think about pricing. So let's start with a brand that's in retail, right? So let's say, a big retail brand is doing a launch at Target and they want to book you for a reel. Brands typically aim for a $25 to $35 CPM. So you can just do the math. You can figure out what your average views look like and then figure out your CPM from there, and try to get in that $25 to $35 range. And that's the rate you would charge. So that's like a pretty simple way. And so like a lot of times when we're negotiating, our first question is like, what are your KPIs, right? And if it's CPM, like, is it 25 to 35? Are you going a little bit more flexible because you have a niche product and it's going to be whatever? There's so many factors that go into it. But if you understand the CPM, it's a very easy calculation. You know what your average views are. Now, if you're talking ROAS, here's how I suggest influencers charge, right? So let's say it's a brand, it's a $30 AOV, a $30 average order value. You typically get 1,000 story views. Let's say that 10% of those people clicked through. So that's 100 people are clicking to the website. And let's say 10 10% more actually purchase. So it's 10 people purchased, $30, 10 times 30 is $300. You should charge $300 for that story. If their goal is a 1x, if their goal is a 2x, then you would charge $150 for that story. So it's, again, going back to like, if you can speak the brand's language and understand what they're looking to accomplish, it's pretty easy to price this in a way that like you're going to get the maximum value that you know is possible and they're going to be really happy. There's other things to think about, right? So there is usage and whitelisting. So like you're going to have to charge for that. That's a little bit more nuanced because you don't know who's running their paid media efforts. There's things like exclusivity, but that's why you have management, right? So like at a basic level, that's like a really good gauge for how you should be charging. But then like there's some nuances that I feel like having just, you know, thousands of deals coming in and out of your agency every month help you price in some of this other stuff.
So helpful. Just even thinking about the CPM kind of build up to what your price points could be for a reel. Translating that to stories based on your story reach, I think makes a ton of sense and simplifies it, right? And then I think what was interesting that you said was it's the folks that are passionate about one thing that are more successful selling through for brands.
Typically, yeah.
It's also true that we're seeing the people that are focused on one thing in their content types are also seeing more success just generally on social media.
Yeah.
You know, especially in the food vertical.
I think if you amass your following because you're changing people's lives in some way, and a lot of these food creators are doing that, it lends itself to being wildly influential. And I think it's also like a grittiness, right? So like if you look through my roster, like these are not Pinterest perfect influencers, right? Like these people, maybe their content might show up a little bit Pinterest perfect, but you watch their stories and they're as real as they can get. And like, I think that that's another really big piece. Like if you can show up every day online as exactly who you are, you're going to attract the people that like love that. And that's where I think you see like a higher mobility in conversion versus like if I show up every day and I'm trying to like put on a pretty face and do the filters and the whole thing. So first of all, I'm attracting the wrong people because that ain't me for sure. And then when I go and try to sell things, like it's just we're like on different wavelengths here, you know? Yeah. So I've always, just as a human, have always just showed up exactly who I am. And that's what I look for in the talent that I represent. Like there's no horse and pony show with the people we represent. Like they are who they are. They're good people. They're passionate people, and they're looking to make a difference in the world in some way.
We've actually seen like through our own product and our customers telling us that almost all the traffic they're driving, whether it's to your own content and monetizing through ads or for partners, is coming through stories these days.
Yeah, it definitely is, again, that linear line between influencer posts and it's really easy. So I think where you run into trouble though, and I see it, right? Because again, the brand side, like, is that only can take you so far, right? So like at some point, brand with a capital B marketing is really, really important. Like how do you take yourself from a digitally native, ROAS heavy, meta reliant brand to a bona fide brand that can sit on the grocery store shelves, that people can recognize, that has household awareness? And so there's different layers. And like, as I'm going through my career, like I'm learning those layers through the endeavors that I'm doing. And so we're able to adjust our strategies for our clients based on like where they are in their revenue life cycle.
Amazing. So you're spending tens of millions for brands.
Tens of millions? No, but we're
No. I mean, a couple of million per month.
Oh yeah, a couple million.
Yeah, a couple million. Yeah. So over the course of a year, like
over the course of the year,
you've built Flav City to whatever it is, something massive. You were once sitting on your couch as a creator yourself. Yeah, you still are. That's what I appreciate about you.
Not much has changed, if I'm being honest. Like yes, okay, of course things have changed from the sense of like, 35 employees at Echo, and there's definitely some changes that have happened, but like my philosophy has not changed, right? Like if you show up to this, and this is my philosophy on life, if you wake up every day and you say, how can I make a difference? How can I help people? And live with that purpose, like it's what fuels the growth of everything. So granted, my day-to-day has probably shifted a little bit. I'm still waking up every day. I'm sitting on my couch or in my office. If you're watching on video, you can see it now. And I'm doing the same things, right? I'm just learning along the way. And I'm still wearing my sweatpants on my couch. Like, you're not going to see me in like a corporate office. It's just not who I am.
Look, I think a lot of our customers can relate. Actually, I think a lot of our customers who are listening right now, the audience is probably wondering, not everyone is a good fit for an agency like Echo, but maybe let's talk about in a creator's life cycle.
Yeah.
When do you think it makes sense to talk to any manager, right? Like whether they're small or larger agency.
So I think when for us, we don't have like a certain like necessary like follower level, right? Like I signed someone. My team thought I was crazy at the time. I signed someone who had 30,000 followers because I just believed this guy his name was Health with Hunter. It's amazing. And I said, just guys, you got to trust me on this one. I see it. And he was our 5th top grossing earner of 2025. And he's much bigger now, but this was, 2 years of being with us. And so I hesitate to give a follower level. For me, I just can kind of tell when the passion's there. If someone is doing this because they have passion and they aren't like driven by the financial success of it, like you have a higher chance of being successful. But from like a overarching lens, if you're getting a lot of inbound and you need help negotiating, things like that, it may be time to look for management. We typically look for people around 100 and 150,000 plus in followers. But again, it's not a hard rule. I definitely look for like audience engagement more. What percentage of your following is watching your stories? That's a huge indicator to me of what your influence looks like. I know people with millions of followers who get less story views than I do at 170,000, right? So like for me, it's really about like what your influence level is, and what your passion is. Like if you just want to like show up and just make money, like that's not exciting for me. Like that's just not, money. My dad says this and it's like the best advice I ever got. He said to me, like, none of it is our money. It's God's and he's just lending it to us. Right. And so like, that's just not like a driving passion for me. It's like that. Yeah. Anyway.
So many good nuggets. No,
when I think about it, that's what I think about.
So you mentioned something really interesting that, I mean, we think about a lot too, which is like the percent of your followers that see your stories. What do you think would be a healthy benchmark, even if, forget about Echo, just for someone thinking about how to improve?
That is a great question. So, I mean, at the bare minimum, if it like 10% for me is like the bare minimum for the most part that I would like be happy with. Sometimes it can be a little bit lower, but 10% is sort of like my threshold of where I'm like, okay, now higher than that, that's when like my ears start to perk up, right? I have someone on my roster who has probably 100,000-ish followers and she gets like 25,000 story views. It's insane, right? Like talk about influence. So that to me is a big factor. I also look at those groups. You now have those like little groups on Instagram.
Yeah.
I look to see like how many of your followers just join into your broadcast groups. Like that's the type of stuff that I'm excited about. How do you show up every day? Do you use filters? If you use filters, you're not going to work for me. Like I really look for people who show up raw and I'm just being honest.
I love it. No, I love that.
That's important. If I'm going to put the Echo stamp of approval on someone, like I feel like we're moving, especially now with like a lot of this AI stuff, which don't even get me started on that. Like the pendulum is really swinging into this like really artificial. For a while it was the other way. And so like I'm doubling down even harder now. Like the people who are going to win in this new age of AI and all of that are the people who are so authentically them that it literally can't be replicated. Like let's be a little bit messy. Let's have our hair a little bit crazy because we are moving into a world where everything is going to be able to be replicated pretty easily. And so I now more than ever, like the raw realness of it is so important.
I think that's the best advice ever to end on. This has been amazing. Amazing.
Let's talk. I can talk all day.
It's so good to catch up, Erica. Appreciate you coming on. If you comment, listen, we'll send you a link to the full episode and a link to check out Erica's agency, Echo, as well as Flav City, and we'll include your blog too.
Oh my God, please don't. No, don't do that to anybody. I've dated it like 7 years. Don't do that to people.
All right. Well, then your Instagram account.
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, Erica.
Fun.
If you made it this far, you're serious about growing your food empire. Thousands of the top recipe creators use Grocer's List to drive more website traffic, grow their email lists, and earn more through paid memberships. Head to grocerslist.com/podcast to learn more about how we can help you grow, engage, and monetize your audience.